guys bow your heads and pray with me? Dear Lord, just thank you so much for this time of worship, where we get to remember who you are and how much you love us. I pray over Drew as he speaks, and that we would all just have our ears open to hear what he's trying to share. And that's it. Amen. Amen.
If you don't know me, I'm Drew. I'm the middle school pastor.
Nice
to meet you. Okay.
Who are you?
Cool. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am excited for this morning, and here's why I'm excited for this morning. I'm excited for this morning. This is on. Okay, great. I'm excited for this morning because we have a very special guest speaker. Can you guys hear me without this? Can I do without this? Okay. I'm going to hit the ground too.
Interview.
So we are interviewing somebody today. Let me tell you a little bit about myself in the context of this interview. I was a very, very dorky middle schooler. But see, but here's the thing, like I wasn't like. The thing is, I probably had things going for me that I didn't realize I had going for me. But the reality is I was short, and I kind of was insecure about myself, and I was bullied in middle school. That it was just, I was an easy target. I mean, I had a bowl cut. I was a blonde kid. I had this huge crush on this girl that was becoming more of a popular girl. And so, like, you know, these kids, when they transition from elementary school to middle school, they don't make the jump just very well. I was one of those kids. And so I got bullied, and it sucked, and I got picked on. And to prove that this actually happened, I invited my bully, actually, to join us this morning. Everybody, this is Trevor.
Not me.
Okay. So, I don't think I should use the mic. All right, so this is Trevor. I'm going to give you guys a little quick disclaimer. We're actually friends now. So, but in middle school, this is where he was at. And this morning, I think we have a picture of us in middle school, right here.
It's going.
It's going. There! See, look, doesn't that look great?
That's not
Just
good.
kidding. You can see who is who. I'm the one with the bowl cut, the blonde, and that's Trevor. And why I invited Trevor this morning is because I didn't want to necessarily talk about what happened with him, although he's going to share his story and where he was at in life. I want to share a little bit, and we're going to kind of discuss what could I have done differently if I had known Jesus and I was getting picked on. He's going to share a little bit about what was in his world and life. And then ultimately, we actually had a mutual friend, a really close friend of ours, who was a Christian at the time and going to this very church. And so, Trevor, why don't you introduce a little bit about yourself? And since I've already made you out to be the bad guy, I want you to actually say why you're an awesome guy.
So it's going to be a hard argument, but good morning, I'm Trevor. I grew up as a military brat, and for you guys to know what that means, it basically means you grew up with a family that has active duty military parents. So I moved every year, went to 6 different elementary schools until we landed here in Camarillo. Finally went to Monte Vista for 3 years, and that was my only time going to one school. So as a child, I had 3 older siblings, 2 older brothers and an older sister. I was the smallest of them until about high school. So I got picked on a lot by my brothers and sister. So I'm sure you have siblings, you understand. Moving every year, I never really cared to keep or maintain friendships. You know, it's why should I value the friendship I have with someone I'm going to move away from them in a year? So it's all very short-term, temporary relationships. So if I was mean to someone, it didn't really affect me. It's okay, well, I'm going to be gone next year, so I'll get through this rough patch, and then we'll start over a clean slate next time. It's not the best way to approach life. I don't recommend it. So we got to 6th grade, and like Drew said, not everyone transitions well. I probably transitioned a little bit better than Drew, unfortunately. But like Drew, I was in the popular crowd. You have your groups and your cliques that you guys hang out with, and I didn't hang out with the cool kids per se. And those guys picked on me. So we had this mutual friend that we were battling over time. And so he's an easy target. So I figured they'd pick on me, I can pick on him. And so I definitely did not treat Drew very nicely throughout 6th grade. So I'm very sorry for now. And we made good, and it's interesting to see how God has brought us back into each other's life. And now we're good friends. We've been going to this church for 3 years now.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. I saw him in the database, and I was like, the first thing I did was I called him up. I'm like, hey, let's just get together. Because one thing I will encourage you guys, beyond all of this, and it actually kind of leads to our first point, is we're going to talk about kindness, we're going to talk about humility, and we're going to talk about forgiveness. And the reality is middle school is just a short window. And the things that you deal with in middle school, they change dramatically in high school. Like, when you get to high school, those cliques kind of form differently. Some of those cool kids are going to become sometimes even like the druggy kids, and they go over in this corner. Some of those cool kids will go be the jocks, and they'll have their corner. And it changes. I mean, I remember being in high school, there wasn't really any like popular. There were some, but it was very different. In middle school, it was very much, I think I struggled more with cliques in middle school. And by the time you get to be an adult, a lot of those things you kind of move on from. So like the suffering you're feeling right now, it goes away. And so when I saw his name, it wasn't a name of like repulsion of like, oh, I can't believe Trevor Mick goes to our church. I had to call him and be like, Trevor, like you're here, we should hang out. And we did. And honestly, it's one of the best things. I'm so glad we did that. We've gotten to know each other so much better. Because all of that goes away. But in middle school, how can you fix that? And so, first of all, what could I have done to respond to you in those situations? What would you have, what steps do you think I could have taken just as a person, and then we'll look at some scripture to kind of back that up.
I think if you had approached me and Rachel's our mutual friend, just to get the name out there. If you approach me with more confidence, you got to believe in yourselves. Everyone's in the same stage you are. You guys are growing. There's all these changes going on in your life. But that's the same with every single other person who's going to middle school, who's in your grade. So if you just have confidence in yourself, knowing that you're worth something, then that goes a long ways, and people will respect you more. Just stand up for yourself. Have some humility. If someone's poking fun at you, you can just laugh it off. You don't necessarily have to get angry about it, respond, or react. Because usually that's what the bully's looking for. What I mean is, if I know that I'm pushing your buttons as a kid, and I'm doing it, I'm going to continue to do that. So there's only a few ways you can respond to that. And one of the ways is if you don't react, it doesn't make it any fun for that bully to continue to pick on you. They're going to go, well, it doesn't care, it doesn't matter, so why bother? That's
And when we talked, one thing that just kind of looking at the Bible, it says in Matthew 5, I'll kind of read it very quickly for you. And sometimes it's really hard to translate scripture to like very real life application. Sometimes you hear this and you're going to go, but this doesn't make sense in these kinds of situations. But they actually begin to, as he's kind of shared that. It says here, you've heard it said, eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This is Matthew 5:38. And in middle school, there's like two ways to deal with a bully, right? Like everyone's kind of taught this. You either go tell the principal, and that's going to end not so well in many ways, because often the bully just gets madder, and then they actually have a reason to pick on you, versus they were trying to find things. Or you'd say, okay, let's take it to a park after school. And you kind of have a story a little bit about that.
I know I do. I got in quite a few physical altercations throughout middle school. And one of them was 8th grade year. And I had a guy picking on me, one of the cool kids. And he said, let's go to a park after school. So of course I'm gonna stand up. Let's go to the park. We'll take care of it. It'll be done. It did not end so well for me. I ended up going home with 2 black eyes, quite a few goose eggs on my head. He went home nice and pretty still. So, and it did not resolve my bone leg issue. They just continued to harass me.
Yeah, and so you might hear those 2 ways. And this is Jesus' words. He says, but do not resist an evil person. So don't just like run away from them, but instead, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, this is metaphor. If they literally hit you, you probably should talk to your parents about that. But if they hit your right cheek, turn to them the other cheek. So if they slap you, go, hey, like, and I think this is what you're saying, kind of laugh it off, that humility. So right off the beginning, if they're making fun of you, go, yeah, that's so true, dude. I love my bowl cut. And we're going to talk about the difference between a humility and almost like pride. Because sometimes when you turn the other cheek and laugh at yourself, you can laugh at yourself in a very prideful way. We might as well talk about it. I talked a little bit Friday night, if you were there, about a guy named Eric Robertson. He was the turn your other cheek pride guy. So we're talking about humility, where you laugh it off, yep, you're right, that's so funny, and you walk away. Eric's the kind of guy that goes, yep, I don't care how dorky I am, I will continue to be dorky. Let me tell you about how dorky I am. One time, we were freshman or sophomore year in high school, and Eric showed up at my house. I hadn't seen him in 2 years. He was also his dad was in the military as well. Shows up at my house where I'm about to go to the Camarillo Real Mesa game. Like, and for those of you who don't understand, like Camarillo Real Mesa is like a huge rivalry. Everybody in town goes to that game. I went to Cornerstone and I went to that game. Like, I was like, I get to root for both sides. I don't even care, but I'm going. And he shows up in a Letterman jacket, which is actually impressed me as a Letterman jacket as a freshman, but it was for band. And he's like telling me, as we're waiting to get a ride to the game, how band players are more athletic than football players. And I'm like, Eric, listen, even if that's true, even for a hot second, that's true. We're about to go to a varsity football game, Camarillo Rio Mesa. If you're going to show up in a Letterman jacket, bragging about how athletic you are in band versus football, we're just going to be laughed at the whole game. Like, no one's going to take it seriously. I was like, can I put a sweatshirt on you and like you and I just talk? And he wouldn't have it. He had to be, he was like, and that's the kind of thing where, like, he knows that would be something that somebody would say, oh, you're going to get made fun of for that. But he just took it with a sense of pride versus a humility of like, yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, Drew. It might be good. Do you have an extra sweatshirt? But it's that difference of turning the other cheek and not listening to what's going on. The passage continues, and if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go to 1 mile, go 2 miles. Give to one who asks, and do not turn away from the one who borrows. And you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Okay? I never once prayed for Trevor. I came to know Jesus in middle school, and not once did I ever pray for Trevor. I didn't extend to him any kindness. I just hated him. I felt hate in my heart towards him. And instead of actually like turning around and saying, okay, you know what is going on? Can I be a little more confident in myself and in the fact that I trust Jesus, and been nicer or kinder? Having that character of kindness we talked about Friday. And that kind of takes, I'm going to read a little bit more, but it takes us to our second point. But I tell you, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven, because you represent God in your kindness. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and he sends the rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? What's the point? If I just love the people that are easy to love, that's meaningless. I don't actually extend God's love. But if I had loved Trevor in the midst of this, I would have extended a kind of deeper love that was beyond that. And that's going to take us to our second point, which is talking about, you kind of talked about this, no need to prove anything. The reality is Eric Robertson, he wanted to prove something. And in middle school, you're going through a lot of that time of figuring out who you are and your identity and all that stuff. But the only thing you need to prove is yourself to God. Like, God sees you, and God sees what you're doing. Trevor, me just trying to show up, Trevor, that I would be worthy of his love and affection was probably meaningless to you at that time. Right? Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what would happen if someone was trying to prove themselves to you.
I think it shows that vulnerability. If you were to, because like I said, we had that mutual friend, and so there's many occasions when it would just be the three of us, whether it's after school and we're about to walk home or something. But just have that vulnerability, saying, "Hey man, why are you thinking of me? What can I change?" It would have shown to me, like, all right, well, I have two options. I continue to be a bully and be mean and be a less of a person, and choose to pick on him some more, or I could say, he's not such a bad person, and reflect on myself. Why am I being this way towards him? And maybe I need to change how I treat him.
Yeah, most people you will find when they pick on people, and I've had the same struggle, they dehumanize people. And if I had come to him and I'd actually become a human, where it's like, hey, this is where I'm at, Trevor. Like, how do I become cooler for you to stop picking on me? What that does is this actually shifts the balance. Again, this is almost like the turning the other cheek. It shifts the balance from me being unhuman to him becoming unhuman to himself. Because if he had chosen to continue to pick on me, not only does that affect him, but that affects all the people around him. Because those people who knew that I tried to grow from it or be not necessarily popular, I wasn't don't be looking to be popular, but just dealing with it, all of a sudden they go, oh yeah, that guy's just a bad guy. And as you heard Trevor say, he was struggling with that himself. He wanted to just be loved and accepted. And so if I had met him on that level, if I had loved him and reached out to him, that could have been different. And since we've been talking about Rachel, that kind of takes us to our third thing, which is bridging the gap. And this, I think, is the most important thing you can do. Because the reality is some of you will get picked on and some of you will pick on others, but all of you have friends who are being bullied and all of you have friends that bully. Even if it's on a small level, you all have that in your life. And the reality is you are different than anybody who doesn't know Jesus. Because you have God dwelling inside you. And so our friend Rachel, she actually came to this church. And I think we have a picture of all three of us. Okay, so there's Rachel. Okay, by the way, Rachel was my childhood crush. She was the reason why I got picked on. Well, not the reason. I did it to myself. I'm the reason I got picked on so much. But she was my neighbor, and I adored her for years and years and years. I remember being the first day of middle school and being like, "Will you go out with me? Will you be my girlfriend?" And she's like, "Nope, gotta wait till high school." And I moved on by high school, but I remember thinking, only 3 more years, 2 more years. It's so bad. And so Rachel is still our friend. Actually, we text her every once in a while, check in with her. She lives in Las Vegas, and she came to this church 6th grade. When I tell you guys that somebody in this youth group invited me to church, that's her. So you have to think about it. When I first came to Cambria Community Church as a 6th grader, this is what we looked like. This is the youth group I came to in 6th grade. And did she invite you at all?
Yeah, so she invited me. I came to one youth group, or I'm not sure what it was called. There was some formal name for it, but all the middle schoolers got together. I think it was downstairs in the same building.
And what happened?
I had a bad experience, and so a little bit more context is I actually hadn't gone to church since I had lived with my grandparents for a short while when I was in 2nd grade. So from that time on, I had never gone back to church, never found my way back into the fold of God. And I got invited to go to this church youth group by our friend Rachel. And he was in love with her, but she was my best friend type of deal, even though we weren't friends. But I still came. But when I was there, I had got picked on by some of the kids that were that were attending as well. And so I never came back after that. I said, this isn't right for me. I guess it's not my place. And
Yeah. And Trevor shared with me, it wasn't until much later in life that he even came back to church. I mean, over 10 years or so that he even tried to start coming, or started even thinking about coming back to church. So I want you guys to hear that really clearly. We both came to the same youth group, both invited by one person. And it was kids in the youth group that actually drove him away from ever coming back. And that, for me, breaks my heart, because I had this great experience where I got to know people, and the youth pastor cared about me and invested in me, and I never really left the church after that. But can you imagine 10 years without the church community, without hearing about how much God loves you and knowing Jesus? 10 years of never getting that opportunity. And that's what I mean by bridge the gap. Rachel did a great job at bridging the gap and doing that. And she actually stuck up for me a lot. Like, I will tell you, you can tell them.
when I was picking on Drew, she used to give me a lot of flack for that. She stuck up for him left and right, so he didn't get picked on as much as I would have picked on if it had not been for her.
Yeah. So she was a huge champ. And the thing is the only thing that only thing I think she could have done better was like literally set us together and say, hey, this needs to stop. Like, Drew, stop being so annoying. Trevor, stop picking on Drew. What can Drew do better? Like, she could have done that. I mean, but the thing is she really tried her hardest. And the hard part for me in all of this is here we are, standing on this stage, downstairs was the church that we were invited to, and now this is our home church. Although you're leaving in 1 week to move to Ohio, so I'm really sad about that. And Rachel doesn't know Jesus at all. She's completely gone the other way. So here we are, the two people that didn't know Jesus, getting invited to this church. And I came to know Jesus here. And you really kind of came to know Jesus here as well, years later. And the one person that I would love to see come to know Jesus doesn't know him. The person who brought me to church. And so that changes, I think, our mission in life, where all of a sudden our heart would love to see her come to know Christ. And so we talk with her, and we still keep that relationship. And I'll tell you, honestly, she is so excited about this. She texts me, and she's like, I think you texted her one time I was preaching on the main stage, and so she texted me, I heard you were preaching today, I'm so proud of you. She sends me all these texts about how proud of you I am. We're the same age, but it's almost like a motherly thing. It's so funny. And she's doing great in many ways. I mean, she's a mom of a beautiful little girl, I think almost 5 now? Almost 4 or 5?
Too big.
Too big. And she live streams all the time. Literally, I feel like I know this kid, even though I've never met John. And the thing is guys, I invited Trevor here because it's not only talking about how to love your enemy, but ultimately you guys stand in the balance between people who are dealing with stuff on both sides. You have friends dealing with so many things, and if you really want to love people well, honestly, start with your friends. Start with the people in and around you, and be honest with them. If you know they're picking on somebody, say, hey, don't pick on them. If you know if you have a friend who's getting picked on, and you actually have this dynamic where you're in between the two, come between them. Encourage community, because the reality is only very few people that bully actually bully because they just are mean people and have that heart. Most people bully because they're insecure about themselves. And I know that sounds very cliche, because you guys think, oh, well, if I just tell them they're insecure, they're going to make fun of me more. Well, yes, don't do that. That's dumb. Okay? But they're insecure. They're struggling with probably the very same thing you're struggling with. You're just smaller or more annoying or something else, and that's why they're picking on you. Or you've got that face. I mean, come on. And so something that I'm just excited about, I don't have a picture of it, but did any of you watch the baptisms 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? Okay, I don't know if you saw it, but he got baptized. And he,
Wait, that was you?
and what was awesome was I had the honor of being the one to baptize him. And that's just so cool. And you know who I texted that morning to watch the baptisms? Rachel. Yeah. And that's the thing, and it's interesting, she'll watch a church service because she cares about us. And that's what we're hoping is by just loving her well, that we're able to communicate the gospel through that. You don't have to necessarily shove it down someone's throat. Yes, do they need to know that Jesus died on the cross for their sins and rose again and there's a relationship there? Yes. But first, they may just need to know that there are Christians out there that love them. There's a classic phrase that older people talk about a lot. It's not that people hate Jesus. People love Jesus. It's that they hate the church. They hate the church because of how they got treated in the church. They hate the church because of how leadership has handled things. They hate the church for many, many reasons. They love the idea of Jesus. They're like, if you just give me Jesus, I'll follow. But do I have to do with all those people? And you guys are those people. We are the church. So stand in the gap. Don't take yourself too seriously. Be humble. Extend forgiveness where you needed it. The very first thing, like Trevor, I cannot believe that he did this. The very first time we met up as adults, we're sitting there at Starbucks, and he goes, "Hey, I'm sorry for getting crap in middle school." I didn't ask for it. I had just let it go, and he was humble enough to ask for forgiveness. And I, had already extended it in my brain, but it was a beautiful moment. Where the thing is if I just harbored that hate and still harbor that hate, this would never have happened. And I don't know what I would, at that point, if I had harbored the hate, who knows how he would have responded to that as me being a pastor, or even just being a Christian. Because I would not be showing the love of Christ that's in me. And ultimately, I would just say, extend that kindness. I mean, if you extend the kindness to people, it goes a long way. Do you guys have any questions for us before we conclude our time? Because this is really like the last week you'll ever see Trevor. He's moving to Ohio next week. So if you want dirt on Drew in middle school, this is your chance. Okay.
Did you ever
Prank him? No. I was more the one to pick on him verbally, call names. I don't think I ever shoved you around or anything.
If you did, it was barely. It was just kind of like,
Yeah.
it was not like, no trash cans, no lockers.
Yeah, no. I was that kind of bully.
Yes.
Dayton.
That's
Oh, nice. Right next. Yeah, you must be calling.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sir Thomas.
Was Drew like dorky as in just weird, or like dorky as in nerd?
So I mean, everyone's weird, right? In middle school, right? I was weird in my own ways. Everyone kind of is, but he was the easy target. He was a short kid that kind of was quiet, kept to himself, didn't really try to exert himself.
Yeah.
So when I got picked on by other kids and I was able to pick on him, I took my opportunity. It's not the right thing to do. So more to add to that though is to go with Drew's point on how to bridge the gap. The way to bridge the gap is by being kind. Because right now you guys are in middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Then the next is high school, and then once you're out of high school, you go to college, and you guys are living the real life and have careers. How you treat people now is how you're gonna end up treating people later. So, God has a funny way of working in us and with us. So until I came back to know Christ, and I was still being mean from middle school to high school, it made relationships very difficult. And when you get out of high school and you're on your own, you need to learn how to communicate with others, how to treat people with kindness, because that's how you get far in life.
Did you ever pick on other kids a little bit, or was it just
Eric Robertson was the other one. I would say he asked for it literally, but he was just short of asking for it literally. He had so much pride in his geeky nerdiness that he didn't listen to anyone's advice. Like Drew was trying to say, take your Letterman jacket off. You're this big. The football players are this big. If you go out there saying I'm cooler than you because I have a band varsity Letterman jacket, you're gonna get thrown in the trash can. He didn't listen to that kind of advice, and so he continued to get picked on. I probably stopped after freshman year. It was the last time that I got into a physical altercation with another peer of mine. But I also got into sports, and I was able to direct my anger and other behaviors in a positive manner.
Have you ever punched anyone?
Yes.
You got it. When he says physical altercation,
I mean, like a physical fight. I went home with black eyes and goose eggs, so like big bulges on my head from getting hit. Yeah, so
I mean, there are stories that he has where he won the fight and that person wanted to like prove themselves later.
I can share that one.
Okay.
So the guy that really rocked my world and beat me up, his best friend thought, well, since you got beat up, I can continue picking on you. And so he did until high school. Then freshman year, he kept on doing. I was talking to a bunch of girls, and I know guys, if you're talking to a bunch of girls, you don't want to sit there and get bullied and picked on from them. It doesn't make you look good. So I had finally had enough of it, and we decided to throw down right there in the middle of the quad after lunch.
Real Mesa, right?
Real Mesa. And I just let him have it. And like all that anger of him picking on me over the years, he got it all. And then after that is when I finally stopped getting picked on. But I also joined the wrestling team, so they're like, okay, well, we won't pick on this kid anymore.
Now, I didn't have to have a single fight with Trevor, and we're good friends, and the bullying stopped. I just want you to point with that. So you can do it the violent way that's like, now that guy will always hold anger against Trevor, and instead, I love Trevor, like, deeply, and there's no anger here at all.
Did you win the fight?
Which one? I lost one fight.
Did you ever come up with your comments?
No, I was so bad. Like if I had just taken 5 minutes to ask Rachel, like, what could I do to be not bullied?
She would have told you.
No, she would have straight up told me, and my life would have been totally different. But I just was so insecure and like that. I mean, I just don't know how else.
There's no color to that, so it doesn't
That's-
have big context.
I know. Our yearbook doesn't have color. I think
We're that
only the
old.
backside. Yeah, we're that old. It's like I remember they have like these like cultural things that happened that year, and those were in color, and they actually let they had only a couple pages of color. And this was a big deal. Like it was like this year we're gonna have some color in yearbooks, and we were actually in 6th grade during 9/11.
So
So
that's
that was
like 20 years ago.
yeah,
That's what we're
9/11
talking
was
about
6th
here.
grade for us. In fact, that's why the yearbook was back there. Yes. Yes, Elizabeth.
Did you ever go to the hospital because of the fight?
No, but once I got home from my fight, my mom almost sent me there for, fighting. So don't fight.
Yeah, we're not telling you to fight.
That's not the message.
I want you guys to hear clearly. If I had fought him, there would be a lot of anger and animosity over the years. Like when he told me he saw the guy that he beat up freshman year, as adults, the guy wanted to beat him up still. Like this was 4 years after high school, 4 years since the fight, and there was no forgiveness, there was no love, there was just hate and anger. But look at this dynamic for a second. We both love Jesus. There's forgiveness. There's a willingness to be humble in both of our places, to recognize not only what he did, but recognize that I kind of earned it. And I'm okay with laughing at myself at that time because it was awkward. It was middle school. And so we both took responsibility for our actions, asked for forgiveness, and now we love each other. And we show this not just a love because we're friends, but because we both love Jesus. And that is a way, way better way to go because there's no hate, no anger, no animosity existed. Like I laugh at it now. I just think it's a funny time period in my life because I didn't take it to the next level. And I thank God for that. And I thank God for changing both of our hearts over the years. And really, that's the only, we could have gone that other path of hatred and anger and maybe totally different. So fights are probably not the best way to go in that situation. Any last questions? I think what time is it?
4:10. 11:56.
11:56?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take 2 more questions and then we're gonna actually pray over Trevor for safe travels. I asked him today what was the one thing I could do for him, like bless him and his family, and he said just pray for us as we move. So will you guys join me in praying for him after these last 2 questions? Any last questions? All of you have no okay, go ahead.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Work. I work right now. I work with the military. I work with the Navy, and I'm transferred to work with the Air Force.
Nice. Okay, Olive, and then I'll give Caitlin the last one.
About how many fights were you actually in?
I'm sorry.
Not a good question, but I want lost.
You have to count.
Probably about 10.
Okay.
Probably once a year through 4th grade. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
So again, the message we want to send is be kind to your friends and be kind to others. Fighting didn't get me anywhere. I didn't earn any more friends. Didn't make me any cooler. I still got the same flack as I got before. So don't fight if you can help it. I mean, if you're stuck in a corner, you're gonna have to lane, get out, and defend yourself, right? But be kind.
All right, and Caitlin, last question.
On a scale of 10, how dorky
He wasn't the dorkiest.
I wasn't a 10.
So he wasn't a 10. I'd probably say a 7.
I was gonna say the same thing. I was gonna say honestly a 7. I would say a 7.
But you're also asking me, and I'm the kid in this grade that wore purple corduroy pants. I don't know if you guys remember those, but it's like carpet. It's like had those lines, and they were dark purple. So, it's really perspective and context there. So we're all weird and dark in our own ways.
Which I just to kind of, I want to say this one last thing. What's funny is you've shared with me a little bit of things you liked in middle school, and it's funny because we liked some of the same things, and had we known that, that's just one way to bridge the gap. So again, you never know in these situations, but kindness, ultimately showing God's love, is going to change a lot of things from hate to love. So that's my encouragement to you guys. Matthew 5:38 and on. Great place to read and study God's word about how to love those that are hard to love. Because what Jesus is saying is, yeah, it's easy to love those that are easy to love, but true faith, true love is loving those that are hard to love. So we're gonna pray, and what I want, how do you feel about people touching? Are you not a touchy person? No, we'll just
I
extend
don't know
our.
how to answer that question.
Good. We'll just extend our. So I've done it before where everyone comes up and prays, like lays hands and prays over you, but we'll just extend arms. We are in COVID still, kind of. Yes, what's your comment?
Congratulations on 9 wins.
Oh my God. All right, let's extend our arms.
And then have fun in Ohio.
All right, let's pray. Okay. All right. Father God, we lift up Trevor to you and his family. Just as they're making this transition to Ohio, just take care of him, his wife, his kids. As they look for a church, they look for a place to live, and all of just the things that are coming with that. One more week in a place that he's lived for many years. That's just crazy. It's a new journey, but God, you are more powerful than any kind of crazy thing that can come up. Dayton is lucky to have Trevor, Lord, and we just ask that as he takes his family there, make sure that they all will still focus on you in the midst of that busyness. So they would find a community that would love them, that would love the kids, Lord, just immediately, Lord. And, God, just that they wouldn't experience all the suffering that we had to go through. That they would grow into young, wonderful believers, Lord. And I'm just thankful for Megan and just the impact she's had in their lives, Lord. And, we just pray for a new beginning and for hopeful reunion with the future. God, you are amazing and loving and powerful. Teach us to be more kind to those who are not kind to us. And ultimately, let us be the gap between suffering and pain, and also for those who are in sin, Lord. Let us be the gap so that, God, you can be glorified because we were able to step in and be your heart in this world. Lord, we love you and thank you.